I'm Joe Normal, and you're watching Guitar Tales with Dave Cohen and Scott Guitar Masenko. Have a rockin' day.
And I will listen up. Here we are in Noise Network Studios. This is Dave Cohen, and this is one of my favorite things that we've started doing on Guitar Tales. We call it the Intermezzo Show. Still supported by our friend Charles Larita over at Mischief Studios in Pennington, New Jersey. Scott and I still have to do a ride down there because I have some guitars that need his help. But thank you so much, Charles. This show is what Scott and I talked about that we do in between our regular shows, because every time Scott and I get together, including what will happen tomorrow night when we're having dinner in Asbury Park, we start talking, and we've been saying that's a show. And it really is. It's a couple of guys who really enjoy guitar music. Scott gigs regularly. I do not, but I love guitar. And we chat and we talk about things that might be of interest to you. So tonight, one of the things that we've touched upon in some shows that we really give a shit about is the impact of social media, but more specifically YouTube, and the ability to grab one of these guys and watch a video and learn how to play a song, and how that's impacted upon the young, the new, the older, and the established guitar players. How does it affect our growth? How does it affect our appreciation and enjoyment of the instrument? So, Scott, why don't you come in here and let's start talking about. Welcome.
Good evening.
Oh, your voice sounds really good tonight. We got our mics going, and I'm such a knucklehead. Scott was yelling at me. He kept saying, "You're on mute," because I did this. Let me see if I can do it on camera. And you can't hear me. And then
make sure it's off. Okay.
No.
Talk. Make sure. Okay.
Yeah, right. So, when Scott and I were in crappy bands together back in the day, like middle schoolish kind of stuff, and when we had to learn songs, it was usually Scott teaching me or putting on a cassette tape and playing it over and over and over again and trying to divine what was there. So my question for you, Scott, I am not an accomplished guitar player. You are. You are, whether you say it or not. In the arc of your development as a guitar player, do you think those years when you didn't have what one might call a crutch, to help you learn the song, do you think that extra hard level of learning helped you grow?
Well, I have to throw in here, in the early days, I was not a guitar player. I didn't start playing guitar until I was in college.
Right.
So when I was with you, I was playing drums and piano. Now, drums, to learn off a record, no offense, drummers, because I'm one of you guys, you can hear the drum beat, right? If you can copy that drum beat, and you're kind of good to go. And that's why everybody knows how to play YYZ on the dashboard of their car.
We do.
But once you try to get into chord structure, in trying to figure out what notes are what, and you got weird different tunings, and you're trying to figure out a Hendrix song, and it's an E flat, and you got a guitar that's tuned up to E because you don't know any better, and you're like, I can't figure out why this is so hard to play. The YouTube revolution, it was huge for me, that even now to learn cover songs and stuff for the Smoke Jackets. Without that, it was very difficult. Like you said, you would learn a song from your friend.
Yeah.
But you always had that one friend that was good at guitar, right, in the neighborhood?
Every band I was in high school, college, and even law school, I had to have the better musicians teach me. There were, I think for me, there were very, very few songs. And the hardest song we did was Spirit of the Radio. We got to that, and we did a moderately okay job with it, I guess.
So how do you learn that Spirit of the Radio riff right there? How did that guy figure that out?
I don't know. He just taught me. That's all I know.
Did he get out? We had the Guitar for the Practicing Musician magazine in those days, right? We can use the tabs. Once you figured out how to use tabs, it was like learning bar chords for the first time. It was like, oh, is that how you does it?
Bar chords was revelatory for me.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I took in my life maybe 3 guitar lessons. One was from a girl, not even a woman yet. I was probably 14 and she was 16 in Hazlitt, New Jersey.
Really?
Yeah, she was taught out of her house, and she
You
taught me
took
bar
guitar
chords.
lessons from my ex-wife?
Yeah, right. Maybe. But it was one lesson, and she taught me bar chords, and it was revelatory. But then again, one lesson, and I didn't master it then, but I had it understood what you could do and how you can move your hand around on the neck. But my question for you is a little more specific. So we know it's harder, or it was harder, right?
Right.
Did you benefit as a musician?
Yeah, this is going back to your original question. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Had a little ADD here. But
that's because my question was wrong. We weren't playing together when you were first learning guitar. But when you did, we still didn't have YouTube for a couple of decades.
So you said, give me the question is.
So right now, let's compare. A 15-year-old young woman wants to learn how to play guitar, and she might take lessons, she might not, but she can hop on YouTube. And there's 1,000 tutorials to learn any song she wants to learn. There's 1,000 tutorials how to play any chord she wants to play.
Right.
Take the same young woman back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or even early 2000s. Those resources aren't available. So if she's taking lessons, once she is not in the lesson, so if it's a once a week lesson for an hour, well, that leaves the rest of the week, the rest of the hours of the day. And when she is struggling to learn this or that, is the struggle itself something that makes her a better musician because she doesn't have that shortcut?
Sort of like paying your dues kind of a thing.
Yeah. And just the process of having to really carefully listen to what's going on, then try to translate what you're listening to into your finger positions, into how you strum and pick, as opposed to someone on a video telling you, when you don't have to go through that, and it's still hard, but that much easier. I wonder if those shortcuts interfere with people's growth.
Well, isn't that, it's not necessarily a shortcut, but that's a very specific talent to listen to a song and be able to know, oh, that's a D, that's an A, that's a this or that or whatever, or even pick up on what the tuning is.
Right.
I know one thing that really threw me off in the early days was Kashmir, which is in dad tuning. There's no way, just by listening, you were going to know that was dad. You thought it was just a standard tuned guitar.
Yeah.
But he had this droning going on. He's playing all the time. What the hell is going on there? I couldn't figure it out until I got like a magazine or something and looked at some tabs, and I was like, Dadgad, D-A-D-G-A-D. Oh, so he's got it tuned up weird. Okay.
Yeah. And you know what? And he was a God. I mean, on the eighth day, God created Led Zeppelin, right? Remember that? Yeah. And I wonder. Actually, I think
Land of Led Zeppelin. I just want to throw that out there for Sue Camerano.
That's right.
It was spray painted on the bridge to the next town from us.
Do you remember what was spray painted on Nichols Department Store's sidewall?
No.
Bloody Smegma, my old band.
Was it?
Yes, I didn't do that. But here's something that's interesting. You got me thinking. To us and to everyone of that generation, Jimmy Page was a god. He was a guitar god.
Yeah, one of the guitar gods in those days.
Right. If we hop on YouTube,
this is like pretty much prior to Van Halen-ish. Like he wasn't really blowing up yet. It was sort of like Page, Clapton, Hendrix.
Yeah.
Maybe Pete Townsend.
I love Pete, but no, we love Pete, but
there were a certain group of guys that were in a bigger hierarchy than the rest of the guys.
There were. So now think about it today.
You didn't have the exposure.
Yeah, but today, if we hop on YouTube, there are people doing insanely impressive, fast, difficult things. They're not guitar gods.
No. Would
Jimmy Page, if he did the exact same things in 2024, I don't think anyone would label him a guitar god. Because
that's a great analysis. I mean, you could say that about singers too.
Yeah.
You put we've said this on the show before, you put Mick Jagger on
oh my God. Yeah.
On a television talent show, they would hit the buzzer right away.
He would be done. And oh, that was pretty good. But that was good too. And so today, everyone who's on YouTube is so technically proficient.
You
right.
He would get the X too.
He would be done. In a second.
No way.
And in the world of guitar, everywhere all day long, once you start watching, the algorithm figures out, we're guitar geeks. And my feed is filled all day long with people doing things that maybe not as creative, but are every bit as impressive as Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
Some people who are as creative as Jimmy. And you say that's great, but they're not famous. They're not making a lot of money off it. And is that, maybe it's a great thing. Maybe it's the great equalizer, or maybe it's a horrible thing.
I think the general direction of a lot of maybe it's the guitar, that's stuff that comes up on my feed because the algorithm knows what you watch.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of shredder guys on my feed.
Right.
But I feel like there's an excessive amount of shredder guys.
Excessive.
And very, very recently as maybe today or yesterday, Ace Frehley got in trouble for saying Van Halen wasn't that great. But he didn't really say that, because I read the full interview of what he did actually say. What he was trying to make the point was he was a blues-based player,
right?
As am I. I got a couple of tricks up my sleeve shredding wise, but I'm pretty much a blues-based player. And he's like, this idea of playing 500 notes really fast doesn't do anything for him. He likes melodic, bluesy type solos, and that makes him, that gets him turned on as far as a guitar player. So he'll gravitate more to a Clapton than a Steve Vai, Ashachiani type player.
Right. Or even a Stevie Ray.
Right.
Because Stevie Ray, to me, is servicing the song.
And that's kind of what he was saying, that
he
feels that Van Halen wasn't really servicing a lot of the songs, that he was just kind of going off and being in his own little world.
Right.
Look, the band is named after him. He's got this double tapping guitar technique and a whole bunch of other crazy techniques and ideas that were definitely not part of the fabric of guitar playing until he came along.
Right.
Definitely not in the mainstream anyway, because they're old videos of Ace two-handed tapping with Kiss, and maybe then they said that he started it, but maybe Van Halen. I don't know. Who gives a damn?
And Eddie was very clear that he said, "I didn't start this."
Before the internet, nobody could search things and whatever, but lately everybody's going, "Oh, Eddie Van Halen didn't invent tapping and pull hammer-ons and pull-offs and this and that." I never claimed that I did, but I do know how and when I figured out how to do it. Led Zeppelin's playing, and Jimmy Page is going like this. He's going. Okay, so he's got his hand in the air, and I'm going. So basically, I just moved the nut. Instead of using this hand, I use this hand. So like right now, if I go like this, you can't tell which finger I'm using. This hand or that hand. You tell me, right hand or left hand? I'm using both, okay?
They always said, they show a guy from the 1940s playing an acoustic guitar, double tapping or whatever.
Yeah.
But in Ed's little world, again, this harkens back that he didn't have videos to watch of other guys.
Right.
He's in his room. He's 15, 16 years old, 18 years old. And he goes, oh, if I do this and I put my finger here, and then if I do that, he was figuring out on his own. He didn't really steal it from anyone.
No, not at all. Not at all. And, if he came up right now, if tapping hadn't entered the public mindset or the public arena, and he did that on YouTube, people say, all right, that's kind of cool.
It's a parlor trick, yeah.
Yeah. And because there's a kid on YouTube I see all the time, and of course I'm jealous because of my follicular situation, but he's got this big head of hair, but not long, and he plays an acoustic guitar, and he has this and he does like a lot of tapping and all these over exaggerated moves,
guitars and
everything,
harmonic chords and everything.
Yeah, and it's just very over exaggerated and artificially dramatic, and I find it annoying, in all honesty. And he's great, but just it doesn't strike me as organic. It just strikes me as silly. But if Eddie came up like that, and all the joy that we see in his face and the joy we hear in his music, maybe a crotchety old Dave Cohen would say the same thing about him.
Yeah.
But
But you get Ace's point, don't you? That
I
He
do.
wasn't saying Eddie sucked or anything like, or I'm better than Eddie or anything like
No.
that, which is the way they portrayed it in the media to make it look like he was an asshole.
Yeah.
What he was really saying was he felt like a lot of times Eddie wasn't servicing the song.
No.
That he was just sort of showboating and playing all these notes and stuff.
Well, you're bringing into my eyes and my ears, so to speak, that very famous clip of him and G.E. Smith. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll even put it over. We could probably do like in post. Because I've watched that 1,000 times, and I think that's one of the places where it's kind of apparent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he comes up with a little riff, and they start jamming it,
Right.
And then the SNL band has always been great, and this particular version of it's great.
I mean, sure, that was rehearsed, but Paul Schaefer put together something years ago called like the All Star Garage Band. I don't know if anyone try to look that up on YouTube.
Right.
I guess it was like in the '90s. So he brought on Eddie, brought on Sambora, and they had a couple of drummers, and everyone in the band was very famous. And Paul made it a point to say, we didn't rehearse any of this. This is just us playing our childhood favorite things.
Right.
And they were doing some kind of Motown type song. And Eddie was like being Eddie, but he seemed completely lost. He's not a Motown guy.
Right.
He was playing like Eddie shredding over Motown songs, and it didn't work. And then when Sambora got his chance, he was a little more soulful and bluesy, then he was able to adapt. So that just goes to show you that, you know, you can't always put different guitar players in different situations and have the magic happen.
No, it's true. It's true. And you see that all the time. Like every time you have, like at the, the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Awards, there's always going to be one act when they're pulling everyone on stage when you can see someone who's otherwise good.
Right.
Just it's not working. It's not fitting for them. A
lot of those big monstrous jams like Rockestra, remember that one? That was they had like 9 different guitar players playing at the same time and playing different solos, and like half of the guys were doing sort of a Chuck Berry imitation, the other half were doing a Clapton imitation, and that was a situation where they just couldn't be honestly original with the kind of music they were given to play. If they're given a Chuck Berry type song to play, what are you going to do that? You're going to play like Chuck.
Yeah, and it doesn't do anything. Or did you see there was that little flick that was with Jimmy Page, Zach, and The Edge.
Yeah. This is going to get loud.
That's it. I couldn't think of the title. Yeah. And I'm a huge U2 fan. I flew out to Vegas just for one night. And but he does something very specific that does not lend itself to other types of music.
Right.
I felt like when I felt bad for him watching that movie, and he just seemed lost through the entire thing. Like musically, he was just sort of watching. I mean, they were both really just watching Jimmy. Jimmy kind of took it over.
Right.
But The Edge, who is wonderful, but he's wonderful in a very different way. Like it was almost like trying to put Bob Dylan on that show.
Mindful of the first G3 tour video that I saw, and I saw that tour in concert. You've got Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, who are sort of, similar type guitar players,
Yeah.
And as everyone knows, that Joe taught Steve a thing or two back in the day. He was his teacher.
Right.
And then you had Eric Johnson, who
oh my God. Yeah.
was on the stage, and he seemed like the fish out of water during the whole thing when all three of them at the finale played together. He's wearing a big gigantic pair of headphones, and he's got this tone, and he's doing all this melodic stuff, but he's trying to shoehorn it into this heavy metal kind of riff thing. and it was very odd. It was very good, very impressively played, but it didn't like. That's not his thing. That's not his thing. He's not using whammy bars and making all kinds of weird noises. He's more of a melodic type, a shredded player.
Now let me take what you just said and let's connect it to our topic for tonight. So when the Steve Vais of the world came up, when the Eddie Van Halens of the world came up, all the people we now call shredders, because that term has been around for however long, but not forever, right? What's the future for them when a 16-year-old kid from his or her basement can do the same thing just as well now? Like, the type of music that makes the creative types different. I'll think of a Keith Richards who's playing a screwy tuning with 5 strings and not worried about being a shredder, but coming up with a cool sound, and who has stage presence. What is the future?
I can think of a guitar player right now off the top of my head. I know he annoys the shit out of you every time you see a video of Johnny Depp.
Oh, yeah.
He's got this great look.
Yeah.
But I don't think he can play. Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Comments.
You're not.
I would love to hear some isolated guitars. But you know what? He's having a good time.
No, I don't give him a pass.
Mediocre player, whatever. But
I don't give him a pass.
It's all looks and no substance.
It's just I think it's obnoxious, and the fact that wonderful guitar players are playing with him, I don't understand it. I'm jealous. I admit it. I'm resentful. Handsome, rich, successful.
Has hair.
Yeah, has hair. Really good hair.
Really expensive vintage guitar.
But I think you just made that point. So in today's world, he's doing something creatively that the basement shredders aren't. So the basement shredders, and it's all over your feed, right? There's going to be a 16-year-old kid from Dublin or London or Detroit or Tallahassee,
small world now.
Yeah, who's playing Eddie-styled leads maybe better than Eddie. But in terms of folks, Johnny Depp, as much as it's so much fun to read the comments every time they post a video. But he's doing something very creative. He's cultured this little look for himself. He wears the guitar slightly below his knees, I think, and he has his cool, dramatic way and his mellow way, and he wears 8,000 necklaces and ribbons and things like that. But he's creating sort of artistically, he's creating a look and a vibe. I mean, and maybe that's what it means, because you cannot, just hop up to a producer or try to, make it by saying, I can play really, really, really fast all over the neck. That gets you, I would guess that gets you nowhere right now.
Right. It's hard to break in that way.
But Eddie,
especially rock instrumental music, because the competition is so fierce.
Or just AI will just do it at this point. I haven't even tried that. But then again, I said Eddie before I meant Johnny. You take a Johnny Depp, a young up and coming Johnny Depp, who's going to say, I could create a vibe. I could create a look. I hold my guitar in a sort of a unique way, and I'm modestly competent on the guitar. And suddenly in the world of YouTube, maybe that is a bad impact of it, that a creative shredder is going to get lost in the mix.
Compared, and they'll take a Johnny Depp any day over a shredding guy.
Yeah.
Which is a point we made on the show gazillion times.
Yeah.
If you don't have stage presence I don't care how great you are.
Yeah.
You gotta look the part. You gotta have put on sunglasses or whatever the hell, or wave your hair around if you have hair.
Yeah, right. But you
throw
guys
the guitar around your back, play behind your back, whatever it takes.
You guys pull out kazoos in your songs. I think it's so much fun.
Yeah. We have a megaphone this year, which is going to be interesting.
Thank you, Amazon.
Wireless back in 52.
Oh my God.
Oh, I like that.
We'll be using it for 2 different songs.
Tommy holds up signs from the drum kit.
Yeah.
And so in terms of what the technology and more specifically YouTube does, maybe, just maybe, an impact of it is that it's making us work extra hard to do what Scott's talking about, is to find, creative ways to keep people happy and entertained. And I think maybe, the folks we see, I could picture in my head, like you see, we've seen like 6-year-old kids,
Mhm.
Who are just all over the neck,
Yeah.
playing phenomenally. And you're like, all right, I'm bored.
And you ask yourself, did these kids exist when we were kids?
No, I don't think so.
Or this is a new prodigies that are being created because of the internet and how they can learn things
Yeah.
in
And
a timely manner and see visually. We didn't, we had talked about this with our upcoming guest, Ryan Cook, who used to look at Circus Magazine and Tom
yeah,
Hirsch Rock Concert and Midnight Special and all that stuff to visually see things because it wasn't available anywhere.
no. And now, when I was a kid, you were in my house many times. Do you remember the piano we had? We had a little stand-up
conversation pit, but I don't know where the piano was.
It was right next to it, and it was actually a player piano with those little those paper
with the
scrolls
little holes in the paper.
Yeah. So the kids who can shred all over the neck, I would posit that many of them, not all, but many of them, are that player piano. Like, it's not that there's thought, soul, or love in their playing. It's just mom and dad are just forcing them to take lessons and look at YouTube and learn all this stuff. And they're doing it the same way we might send our own kids to play soccer or something like that. But it's not.
At some point, though, the love of music takes over.
It has to, right?
And and you get your own inspirations.
Yeah.
Playing drums, starting off playing drums. My dad was a drummer. He was kind of like my first teacher. And then he was teaching me a lot of jazzy stuff with brushes and mallets and all this stuff. And then when he wasn't teaching me, I was just home clowning around.
Right.
I'm playing the Who.
Yeah.
Maniacal Keith Moon drumming, smashing everything and hitting everything. And he was like, whoa, what are you doing? You don't have any technique. No, this is Keith Moon. How'd that go?
That's right. I'm sorry. I was off tonight.
Whenever I make a weird noise, Dave asks me to do it again.
Yeah, I do every time.
You want to talk about some guests we got coming up?
Yeah. Look at this
in a secret way.
In a very secret way.
We can wrap up our Intermezzo show here.
Yeah, we have a gigantic guest coming up. One of the legends and giants in not only the guitar world, but in the entertainment guitar world, meaning not just sitting home alone, but recording albums with multiple bands, recording albums with an extraordinarily famous legendary band, performing with an extraordinarily famous legendary band, being on stage with legendary folks, and one little hint, producing an album by a Guitar Tales guest, and I'll leave it at that.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then we may have a new sponsor coming on board soon.
That's right. From Asbury Park. We're working on it.
Yeah,
can't give any more hints than that. Yep.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Charles Liberty, you're not going anywhere. We'll have two sponsors.
Yeah, we are adding to the cadre, if you will, of guests. So, really great things coming up. And these shows are great because it's just Scott and I doing what we do every time we chat anyway. But if it's of any interest to anyone, which we hope it is, you can get a little out of it.
3 or 4 views.
Maybe that many. Yeah, that's right. Well, this was a lot of fun. We want you to stay tuned for all our shows and do what Scott always asks you to do. Click, hit subscribe, hit like, whatever platform you're watching. We made about $12 last week on the show. We're very proud of that. So that'll maybe pull us up to $12.50. But no,
here's a statistic for you. 97% of our viewers are not subscribers.
Right.
And
there you go. You do.
So that's what helps our show. I mean, if you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, please. We're not going to bother you with all kinds of emails and stuff. We're not.
No, we're not like we do it. This is a labor of love from two old friends from the 1970s. But what's really cool, and I like to brag about this, is that there are statistics we've seen, that we get from the Facebook analytics. There have been months when we touched 750,000 people. So we
appreciate you guys.
Yeah, it feels really good. So with that closing note, we want to thank you so much for joining us. And the next show you get from us will be from that very, very well-known person. So we'll talk to you soon on Guitar Tales. Dave Cohen and
Scott Guitar Mrs. Sangle from New Jersey.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Jersey and Noise Network Studios in Jersey.
And Noise Network Studios. And we're going to have dinner tomorrow night, Dave and
That's
I.
right.
Maybe we'll have something to report back to you.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Have a good night,
everybody.
Take care.
Listen up!
How's it going? This is Weedles from Hair Supply. You're watching Guitar Tales with Diamond Dave Cohen and the legend, the guitarist Scott Engel. Get some.